Okay. Hello, Tyler.
All right, yeah, you got your hydrogen inhalation going too.
Yeah, it's a perfect time because I'm always running around. So when I can do a Zoom call or a podcast, it's a perfect time for me to plug in the inhalation and get a quick therapy session
Right,
in.
right on. That's perfect.
So I'll just do a quick introduction to my audience. Guys, it's Mateo, the Hydrogen Warrior. I've been studying molecular hydrogen for a little over 8 years now. I've been one of the biggest fans of Tyler LeBaron for many years since I discovered this miracle molecule. And now I actually have the honor and privilege to have a little bit of his time to pick his brain about molecular hydrogen, discuss some of the scientific studies and our personal experiences. So I'll hand it over, Tyler, if you wanted to do an introduction for yourself. For those of you that don't know, it's all you.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, it's my pleasure to be here a little bit and educate on some of the research on hydrogen. I got involved in this, let's see, back in 2009, 2010 or so. I came across the alkaline ionized water and trying to understand, what was therapeutic about this water, how it's supposed to work, and that, led me to molecular hydrogen, which we now know is the exclusive therapeutic agent behind, how this water provides these benefits that we can see in some of the scientific research. Um, so that was really interesting. And then after that, I had the opportunity to go to Japan, actually, where the hydrogen research is really happening at. So
Yes.
that was a cool experience because, I mean, that's where hydrogen was born, so to speak, with all this top research. And so let's see, yeah, that was in 2013 that I was able to do that. And yeah, I researched at Nagoya University in the
Mm-hmm.
Department of Neuro, and that's where we research hydrogen gas on various cell signaling pathways. And I also got to meet a lot of other top researchers, including Dr. Ota, for example, who published the
Mm-hmm.
2000 medicine publication. So yeah, I've been at this for a long time and happy to be involved in the academia and the research. And, then later, well, I will say that, because most of your followers probably know of our organization, Molecular Hydrogen Institute, right?
Yes.
So we're a 501c3 science-based nonprofit, right? Our mission is to educate and to advance the awareness of hydrogen and to promote the research, right? So we
Correct.
don't promote or endorse any products or anything. We're just really focused on the education and the research of hydrogen gas.
Mhm.
But the reason why I started this is because in 2013, when I was in Japan, I realized there was a lot of false information about molecular hydrogen in general
Yeah.
that was occurring in Japan. And a lot of people don't realize how much misinformation can actually come from Japan because they think, oh, they're so smart, so they know everything. But
Right. Yeah.
that also means that they are early pioneers in this, and that means there's a lot of misinformation out there as well. And so I
Mm-hmm.
started Hydrogen Institute so that I could, uh, I guess, get ahead of some of the false information that was going to come about hydrogen in general, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the origins of our organization. And so right now, yeah, we're focused just on the research and the education and the awareness. So I invite everybody to check that out. But with that, yeah, I mean, let's get into some of the therapeutic effects of hydrogen.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for that, explaining all that. And as my fans know, and also my customers and clients know, when you get a product from my company, every single one of our inhalation devices come with a certification course. So I'm buying a certification course, and that's a thing that's included because it's so important. And right now, it's a wild, wild west. It's
Yeah.
an unregulated market.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you doing that. I didn't realize that's how you were doing it. That's amazing because that yeah, those all that education that we offer, our courses, that goes directly to helping our mission of doing more research and promoting the education. And I've been at this since 2013 with just the website, but
Yeah.
before I have been I guess, donating my own money so that I could, host the website, for example, right? And
Hmm.
like everybody wants to learn about hydrogen. I need to figure out a way how to make this self-sustaining, right? So that I can really do more educating. So that I really appreciate your support with that.
Well, I appreciate you creating that platform as a totally unbiased, like you said, you don't endorse any products and you're keeping it really square, which I love that about you. And you've stayed on that line of science the whole time and you haven't wavered. And it's a great unbiased source of science-backed information for anyone in the whole world of ionized water to inhalation to hydrogen tablets, to anything involved in just health and wellness. It is my go-to resource when they say, well, do you have any information? Absolutely. Go to Molecular Hydrogen Institute. And if you buy one of our units, it comes with a certification course. So every other week, you're getting a purchase from my company for all of our staff and people that work with us. Education's a huge pillar of my brand, Axiom H2. And so having education, testing, transparency, and safety, that's what we're all about. And so I already have a lot of the doctors on my team. The medical community is now waking up to this. It's not just us weirdos
Yeah.
that's breathing the gas and talking all this nonsense. No, there's all the science research behind it. We're getting the medical community behind it. I got a lot of medical staff and team behind my brand, Axiom H2, and I'm getting them educated. And they're knocking out the course within the first week. They're like, I'm ready for level 2. And so now everyone's like, Mateo, is level 2 ready? I'm like, not yet. They're just doing some updates, but don't worry, it'll be ready soon. And
Yeah.
so it's exciting.
Well, I will double my efforts to get level 2
Okay.
ready, because very excited for the content we're going to offer in level 2. There's two things that I really think are really important. Number one, we're going to go through some really cool scientific tools and principles to enhance our scientific literacy and critical thinking. And
Okay.
because we can't all be experts in everything, so how are we supposed to know what is true and what's not true and everything? And so we
Yeah.
have some courses on that. And then we also talk about inhalation specifically and go through some very important things, because there's a lot of products on the market that, yeah, it's inhalation, but good luck getting any therapeutic benefits from that, because it's not providing, the doses that are equivalent or similar to what we use in the clinical studies.
Yeah.
So we really need to talk about.
Yes. And this is what everyone's looking for. Everyone's looking for protocols. And I've been working on a book for about a year now. And, it's not done yet. There's plenty open chapters if you want to hop in there as well. Because a lot of the medical community, they're really looking for, those really strict blueprint and protocols for this issue. What is the exact flow rate? What's the breathing? And the good and the bad part is what has the highest safety profile. So if you're stage 4 cancer or you're an Olympic athlete, breathe the gas, right? Breathe deep and, at the proper flow rates. And, the device that I like to use is a 600 milliliters per minute of pure hydrogen gas. And I want to get your opinion, too, on the Oxy Hydrogen machines and that has oxygen with the
Yeah.
hydrogen. And, under my research and my opinion, I found that there's higher risk with healthy people breathing in pure oxygen than reward for healthy individuals with proper blood saturation oxygen levels. I never saw the benefit for a healthy person, an athlete, to be breathing Oxy Hydrogen. I saw there are more benefits, and with the studies done with Oxy Hydrogen with the sick individuals with low blood oxygen saturation. But so I'd love to hear your opinion and how you think for healthy people, is it better for pure hydrogen, or you recommend Oxy Hydrogen? Because all my devices are pure hydrogen because I felt that to be the magic. It was always the magic was hydrogen, right?
Yes, yeah. Hydrogen is just this humble molecule in the background, while oxygen's getting all the attention, right? Hyperbaric oxygen, oxygen therapies, oxygen bars, and
Yeah.
but hydrogen, really, the magic molecule. Of course, we need oxygen, to live, right? But we need hydrogen too. Well, we don't need per se, but if you want to optimize your health, hydrogen plays a very important role, right? And I just want to say about just going back first about the dosing protocols
Yes.
and different things. 100% correct that people want to know that the optimal protocol, right? I have this condition, so I should be, what should I do, right? I should drink this much hydrogen water a day, inhale this much hydrogen gas at this time of the day, at this flow rate and for this long and this frequency. And that would be nice. That's what the medical community is used to, because that's the way we diagnose and then treat and cure disease. We have very specific protocol that we follow, right? But that's not
Yeah.
the case with hydrogen for two reasons.
Right.
Number one, we simply don't actually have that research yet, right? We don't
Yeah.
have like thousands and thousands of long-term clinical studies that are looking at one specific disease at very specific outcomes and doing like comparison of different things to really hone in on what the optimal best way is. That type of studies, they simply don't exist, right?
Right.
So and then even if we were to do those studies, which eventually we will, it's still possible that that's not really how hydrogen works, because hydrogen does not work at the receptor protein interaction like level. Like most drugs, they have like one target, they have one receptor, it's going to bind to this, and it'll do this specific process. And and that's why we have one drug that is approved for one specific disease, because it
Right.
targets one specific at this specific receptor and so on. And hydrogen does not work in that same way. And so
No.
it does complicate matters, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Now going to the Brown's gas and oxy hydrogen. I have a lot of thoughts on that.
Yeah.
Fortunately.
Yeah.
First off, the term Brown's gas came from this guy,
Yule Brown.
yeah, Hugo Brown, right? And okay, that's fine, but there was also a lot of things that he talked about that rather contradicted the scientific understanding, scientific principles, right? The laws of like thermodynamics and different things, he put a lot of work, and hats off to somebody who's going to do all that. So I get it. The issue today is that I personally do not like the term Brown's gas, and that's because it's often associated with a whole bunch of pseudoscientific concepts, right? Things that have not only not only is there no science to support, but there is plenty of science that directly refutes some of the. So it's not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying personally, unfortunately, the term Brown's gas has been commandeered by the pseudoscientific community, and they promote all sorts of, energetic, frequency, crazy, enigmatic, ridiculous claims, and they say that then is Brown's gas, and so it's kind of harmed that reputation, and so I feel bad for Hugo Brown, because it's associated with a lot of misinformation. So then the raises the question though, okay, but what are the benefits of oxy hydrogen compared to the pure hydrogen, right? And was one more effective or superior to the other? Well, kind of to your point, there is no evidence that oxy hydrogen is any more effective or any less effective than pure hydrogen.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you said something about oxygen toxicity, and now that's not with oxy hydrogen per se, that is with inhaling hydrogen gas. And you're right, you're absolutely right that a lot of research is showing that when doctors in the hospitals administer pure hydrogen gas to sick patients or to pregnant mothers, for example, when they're giving birth, and they give hyperoxygen like this hyperoxemia or high oxygen levels has actually been shown over and over and over again to be toxic. It actually exacerbates the outcomes and causes more problems, and is associated with a lot of toxicity and damage to newborns, to the elderly, and so on. And so it's like it really doesn't help. In fact, it's hurting in a lot of ways. But this is how hospitals work, those, because they do have big studies and they have protocols, and they're going to just follow the protocol, and that's for the better, for the worse, and unfortunately in this case it is for the worse, because it's not good, right? But you're trying. We talk about this also on our levels 2 courses about what's the cause of type 2, and the thing is if you're a doctor and you know that oxygen is good for you, that well, you know that you need oxygen, okay? You know that you need oxygen, your patient is not breathing very good or something, and it seems like they're going to have low oxygen levels, then it raises the question, should I deliver oxygen to this person to raise their oxygen levels up, right? And on the one hand, if there's no evidence either way, then you have to ask yourself, okay, what are the pros and cons? Like, it's a type 1 error or type 2 error, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you administer the oxygen and it ends up being bad for you, well, that's one error. But if you don't administer the oxygen and then they end up dying, then that's a really big error, right?
Right.
And so there's this calculus that has to be done
Yeah.
until you develop the research. And that's what's happened. The research wasn't really done, but it just makes sense logically because everybody knows that the body needs oxygen, right?
Right.
But now we're starting to, it causes these toxic
Yeah.
effects. Now, the issue is that is 100% oxygen, right?
Right.
When we breathe normal air, we're inhaling about 21% oxygen.
Right.
And when you do hydrogen, that concentration of oxygen only goes up to 33% oxygen. So it's not very much. And it's actually not that much either, because we have to do the math. So let's say that you are inhaling 600 milliliters per minute of oxy, we'll say a liter, a liter per minute of an oxy hydrogen mix, right?
Okay.
So it's 66 hydrogen and 33% oxygen. Okay, so
Yeah.
that means around 333 milliliters. We're just going to say 300 milliliters per minute of oxygen. Okay.
Okay.
Now let's take 300 and we do 300 divided by 60. That's going to be around 5 milliliters per second of oxygen. Okay. Now this is the math you have to do, because now when we take a breath of air, we're going to inhale around 500 milliliters of air, and in 1 second, and 500 of those milliliters is going to contain that 5 milliliters you got from inhaling, right?
Right.
And so now you get 21% of the oxygen that's from the air, 21% of the 500 milliliters is from the air, and then the additional 5 milliliters. When you take that 5 milliliters and do that math, that increases the oxygen by like less than 0.1%. So you really go from 1% to like 21.5% or 20. I mean, it's a very small amount of oxygen are actually increasing. And so that's fortunate in the sense that if there is truth, which there seems there is, that there's toxic effects to inhaling high levels of oxygen, fortunately, you don't need to worry about it when it comes to hydrogen, because you're not actually very much. Okay?
Right.
It's a very small amount. You're going from 21% to like 21.5% at best. Right? It's not very. Now, but that also debunks the other myth, which is that, well, you're getting extra oxygen and that's really good for you, right? Well, we've already talked about the fact that probably it's not actually that much better for you. You're not even if you need it, like if your body actually needs oxygen, like you need to have an oxygen concentrator, and you actually do need that. Unfortunately, you're not really going to get that from an Oxy Hydrogen machine, because you're only going from 21% to like 21.5% to 22%.
Right.
It's that's the equivalent. We could do the math, but essentially, like if you're living at sea level and then you go up, another 500 or meters or something. I mean, it's just an altitude change. It's not significant, right? So that also makes us want to analyze the literature a little bit better when we're looking at the research on inhalation, because the research often uses either pure hydrogen or a mixture between a hydrogen and oxygen. And the question has always been, which one is more effective, Oxy Hydrogen or just pure hydrogen? Well, based upon the math that we just did, it doesn't make any sense that the oxygen should be providing like any therapeutic benefit at all, because it's such a small, minimal amount. So really those benefits are attributed to the hydrogen, not to this Oxy Hydrogen mixture, okay? So what then are the drawbacks to Oxy Hydrogen? Well, there aren't really necessarily any drawbacks, except for the safety, not in terms of the body, like the cells, but in terms of the safety. Is an explosive mixture. Okay, and hydrogen gas is explosive also, but that's only when it's above a only, yeah, below a 75%
4% or
level,
5.
4. Yeah, exactly. So like the hydrogen gas that you are inhaling right now, you could take a lighter to the cannula and you will see a flame that comes out
Mhm.
of that, right?
Yeah.
It's just like with the acetylene torch, right? When you're
True.
doing your well cutting things, right?
Uh-huh.
Turn the gases on, and what happens, you have two different hoses, right? One has the acetylene, the other one has the oxygen, right? And 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 that's why the tank doesn't blow up, because one's putting out the substrate, the energy mixture to burn, and the other's putting out the oxygen that it can burn it. And you turn them both on and you make the flame right there, and now you can cut something really good. Okay.
Right.
Now and that's exactly how the cannons work when you have the hydrogen inhalation. The Oxy Hydrogen machines don't work that way, right? Because they mix the gas right inside of right in the machine, right? Once they're produced, they then mix and it goes into the cannula. So
Right.
with an Oxy Hydrogen machine, if you light that cannula, the entire cannula on down into the base of the machine will explode, and it could be disastrous. I mean, I know
Right.
they try to make them as cautious as possible. I have seen some explosions of some of the really high level machines,
Yeah.
and they actually contain them pretty well, but it's impressive level explosion. I don't know if you
Right.
saw, I did a video a while ago on the therapeutic effects of hydrogen inhalation for COVID-19. And
Yes.
in that video, if you remember, I showed some Chinese patients who were inhaling the hydrogen gas, right? They were using an Oxy Hydrogen generator. This is an FDA approved, class 3 medical approved device they were using in China. Okay.
Right.
And so there is a level of risk and danger with that level of explosion, right? And again, it's
Mhm.
benefiting them a whole much because of they're getting a little bit of extra oxygen. It
Yeah.
you know, in this case, maybe a little bit, just because the flow rate on those machines are actually pretty high, and so
Right.
maybe they are getting a little bit higher, but really most likely not. Okay. But these machines I've seen, for example, the company did some safety testing. It was really problematic though. Oh, it looks like we were frozen a little bit. Can you still hear me?
Yeah. I lost you for about 5 seconds. So I missed part of it.
Oh, well, anyway, but point is, it's just something that people need to be aware of, right? When it comes to that safety aspect, because
Right.
hydrogen is explosive, right?
Yes.
And so there's that. Now, there is some conjecture that we can argue of why the oxy hydrogen would be more effective, but we kind of already talked about why that's probably not so much. But we could go the other way and we could argue why not having the hydrogen or the oxygen would be more effective. And again, there's no evidence to support this. But for example, there is a protective benefit at being at high elevation. Essentially, the
Mhm.
higher the elevation, not the higher, but in general, right? The higher the elevation that you live, like up to, like, I don't know, 10,000 feet, so a few thousand meters, 3,000, 5,000 meters, something. So pretty high, but not like Mount Everest high,
Right.
obviously. There's a level of a protective benefit, that your cells respond to that mild hypoxia, and you
Mhm.
don't get as much damage because you don't need that much oxygen, right? When we breathe, just sitting here, we're only consuming between 300 to 500 milliliters of oxygen per minute.
Right.
Yet we're breathing around 1,200 liters of oxygen per minute. Okay, just from our normal
Mhm.
air. So we hardly are. We have so much extra oxygen in reserve that we don't need additional oxygen. Okay,
Right.
and so higher levels, higher elevation, there's less oxygen, or the partial pressure is less. The percentage is the same. The partial pressure is less, and so you are less prone to having as much oxidation to go occur in your
Mhm.
body. And so there's a protective effect. And so
Right.
one could use kind of reasoning to then argue, well, then maybe if I'm inhaling pure hydrogen and literally diluting my oxygen levels. So I'm not getting that same level. I'm actually diluting it for just a short period, right? An hour long exposure. Maybe there are some benefits to doing that. That's a real possibility. But again, when we do the math, how much do you decrease your oxygen by? It's not very much, right?
Yeah.
You're 21%. Then you inhale the hydrogen 600 milliliters, and you're down to 20% or something. So
Right.
so it's not a lot that way either, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I will say one other aspect about the Oxy Hydrogen and pure hydrogen that is very significant, and that is if you are going to use this gas to make hydrogen water, all right? Because what
Okay.
happens, yeah, because the gas, the hydrogen gas, well, all gases, they dissolve according to their partial pressures per Henry's law up to a certain saturation level, according to whatever their partial pressure is, right? It reaches equilibrium.
Right.
So if you have 100% of pure hydrogen gas and then at 1 atmospheric pressure, or 1 bar, right, 760 millimeters of mercury, and you put that in the headspace, then once equilibrium is reached, then the water will be about 1.57, or we'll say 1.6 milligram per liter of concentration, okay?
Right.
Now, that's because you have 100% hydrogen gas, and it's
Right.
that atmosphere, okay? In contrast, if you were to do oxyhydrogen, well, what is the ratio? We have 66.7% hydrogen and 33.3% oxygen. And so you're going to have to take that percentage of the total partial pressure. And so now if you were to dissolve the oxyhydrogen, then the most you could possibly get is around 1.1 milligram per liter or so. And so
Correct.
that may or may not be significant, right? Because you're talking about 1.1 to 1.6, but maybe it is. Right, and that's that level of research needs to be. We need to research that a little bit more. There is absolutely, we do know this definitively. There is no benefit to having oxygen gas dissolved in the water and then drinking that. The idea of oxygen, no benefit. And this is not only something that just doesn't make sense physiologically or biochemically, but there are actually quite a number of double-blinded, placebo-controlled, randomized studies investigating the oxygen waters of the world. And what do they find? They find that there is no benefit. Okay,
right.
So it's very clear. So you just don't want to be under the illusion that you can get more benefits from drinking oxyhydrogen dissolved in the water than just hydrogen. By doing oxyhydrogen, you're not going to get as high of a hydrogen. That doesn't mean maybe that's okay. Like we don't actually know that that 1.6 milligram per liter is really going to be that much more effective than say a 1, right? Maybe those are pretty close to saying maybe it's not going to matter very much, right? Or maybe you can just drink a little more of the other water.
Right.
More research needs to be done. But I'm just saying we don't want to be under an illusion that this one has oxygen dissolved in it, so it's going to be like 10, right? And which goes to more of the claims that people talk about, which is, oh, remember this is Brown's gas, water, so it's not hydrogen, it's some other magical molecule. Okay, this is my position, and this is just going to sum everything up, and then we can go back to you. My
okay.
comes to all of these things about, hey, this is not really hydrogen. This is HHO, different novel type of a molecule and everything else. Okay, let's just assume that that's true, that it really is not actual just hydrogen gas and oxygen gas, but it's some other new, novel, unknown chemical compound or something. If we assume that, then we cannot, in any way, shape, or form, use the medical literature on the benefits of hydrogen gas to then say that this stuff is good. Because you just said by your own admission that it's not the same.
Right.
So then why are you doing research to say that it supports your position?
Yes.
If it's not the same, now I want to have safety studies, I want to have toxicology reports, and I want to have data showing that it is effective. Not just anecdotal of people's anecdotal experiences. I want to have real hard data. Okay, that's assuming that it really is different, right? But of course,
yes.
Perspective, we know it's not different. And so we know that, yes, if people inhale this or dissolve that in the water, it's really just a hydrogen gas, and it's going to be safe, it can be effective, and those are the benefits. But let's just not go and make a bunch of, wild claims, because you're trying to differentiate yourself from what has already been demonstrated by the scientific research to be effective.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. And that's what I realized many years ago when I was new to the hydrogen industry. There wasn't education. It was really just whatever the company told you and taught you, that's what people were running with. And so there was companies, Brown's Gas and Oxy Hydrogen, they're writing that's so unique, but then they're using the same studies as from hydrogen. But, so it was contradictory, and,
Yep.
and it wasn't equivalent. And so, yeah, it's a big topic, and I get that a lot. Hey, I'm looking at this Oxy Hydrogen machine. I'm looking at hydrogen. I say, look, I don't know. Look, the research, all the magic's always been with hydrogen. And from my understanding, there was more risk than reward with anything with oxygen. There can be the oxygen toxicity. Never heard of hydrogen toxicity when we're talking about molecular hydrogen, right? That's the safe one. That's the zero cytotoxicity, the highest safety profile. That's always been the magic. So I always bring people, back to where the magic's always really been with H2, not H2O2, not H1, H2.
Yeah.
And, we get it all the time. Oh, this is a scam. There's already hydrogen in water. Right, but it's attached to the oxygen, so it's not available hydrogen. Am I understanding that correctly?
And that's why we offer our courses. So I think it's totally genius of you to offer these courses to people. Buy these courses from our institute so people can learn that, because that very question is something that we answer. Right? You're right. People think, well, yeah, water already is hydrogen, right? Because the water's H2O, so there's already two hydrogens for every oxygen. So this just sounds like another water scam. And
Yeah.
and I don't. We want to laugh about that question because we understand just how different it is. But I think we should also be compassionate to those individuals, because the fact is this water industry is ridden with charlatan scam artists who will just take normal water and they will say, yeah, this is magically structured water with increased vortex quantum energies on the level of superconducting, it's just that the list just goes on of all this pseudoscientific jargon, and
Yeah.
it's not helpful. It's not helpful to the industry at all. And so it is so important that when we talk about hydrogen water, we want to specify the definition that is simply water that contains dissolved hydrogen gas, right? It's not that the water itself becomes now magical and it's super beneficial. It's just the water
Right.
is the carrier. And there's nothing magical about the water. Now you do want to have good clean water. It's not like you can take your sewer water or something, or water that has a bunch of contaminants and all these problems, and then neutralize all of that by just dissolving pure hydrogen gas, and now this water has has nothing wrong with it. It doesn't work that way either.
No.
I guess technically, there is some really sliver truth to the idea that hydrogen can help negate some of the toxic effects, but that's one of the benefits of hydrogen, right? Because we see in agriculture studies and animal studies, what we often do is we'll administer a toxin to the animal or to the agriculture, right? And we see that if we give hydrogen at the same time, then those toxic effects of those heavy metals or those toxins can be greatly reduced, right? So I guess if you have to drink toxic poison water, then you should dissolve gas in it, and maybe it'll make it a little less toxic. But that's not not the same thing as a water filter.
No. Yeah, and that's a super common question. Oh, so your machine makes hydrogen water? No, it's designed to make hydrogen gas at a pure, clean, safe level. And then with that gas, there's different accessories, right? And right now I have the inhalation, or we can infuse water with the diffusion stone, the diffusion rod. And then there's the eye goggles, which are new, and I'm sure you've seen those.
Yeah.
And we've actually got some really good feedback. We have clinics that use eye goggles. We've got really good testimonials of ridding the eye twitch. People have had like an eye twitch for 6 months, gone away within one session. And so that's kind of all experimental. There's no research behind the goggles. But the high safety profile, in theory, yeah, wherever the hydrogen gas touches, it works better, it works more efficiently. Am I understanding that right? Like if we want to work on our gut health, I'm going to get better results drinking hydrogen water for my gut health than breathing. Or it doesn't matter because it's all going to the cells.
Well, I would probably agree with you on that. And I said the same thing, that probably drinking hydrogen water is going to be more effective for your gut health
Right.
Than inhalation. And part of it is not just because you're getting the hydrogen water directly to your gut, but also the concentration is actually a lot higher. And that's something people don't quite understand, but we can think about this. We talked about how hydrogen gas dissolves into the solution or into the blood based upon its partial pressure gradients. So when you're inhaling gas, once you do the math and calculate what the dilution is based upon your minute ventilation and everything, then you may only be inhaling, a few percentage of hydrogen gas.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you take that and you do the math with Henry's law, you're down to, point or less milligram per liter, which is still a therapeutic level at the cellular level. We're not talking about ingesting, right?
Right.
Now, if you were to drink hydrogen water, let's say a milligram per liter, you're going to drink hydrogen water, then when you put it into your stomach and then into your gut, that concentration initially is still 1 milligram per liter, right? And then it immediately starts to dissipate throughout the rest of your body. But where it's going to, get into your intestines first, for example, that concentration is still relatively high because it hasn't diffused everywhere. And so it's going to just, anyways, you're getting a higher concentration right there in the gut, and you're able to enact different second messenger systems and have those therapeutic effects. But that's interesting, your experience with, just trying to apply hydrogen gas to wherever you can on the body and just seeing what kind of things you get. I think that's one of the beauties with molecular hydrogen, is that the safety profile is very high. And so you're in a lot of ways, you're kind of free and welcome to do that, because that's like the Hippocratic Oath, right? Is first to do no harm. And with hydrogen, there is no harm, right? Now there can be, for a different reason, and this is important to say, there are some, I already said before, we don't know all the effects of hydrogen in terms of like its clinical effectiveness and things like that. They're not say, hey, if you have stage 4 cancer, you can take hydrogen for, I don't know, a week or something, then you're going to be cured of cancer or something. There's no evidence to support that. Now, but there are people, unscrupulous sales agents or whatever, that are selling their hydrogen water or alkaline water system or inhalation system or Oxy Hydrogen, whatever it is, and they may unintentionally or not, they may say to people who have like stage 4 cancer, oh, don't get this treatment from this qualified health physician or whatever, right? Buy my machine instead, right? And that's when it's problematic. That's when it's dangerous. You should never use hydrogen instead of well demonstrated effective medicine, or doing that instead of following the care of your health physician, right? We just have to be careful.
Yeah, you have to be careful, and where I've seen it, it plays a role as adjunctive therapy, an add-on therapy, and we actually work with numerous doctors and clinics, and we've had testimonials, and I don't, it's hard to say, but there is a lot of clinical evidence, scientific studies showing. Now, I don't know if it was in vivo or what the exact setting was, but I've seen things where it dissolves tumors and works on combating cancer. And I don't know if that's the exact hydrogen.
There is a lot of research on that. There's research both in vitro and including clinical studies. There was actually a meta-analysis that was done on a whole bunch of clinical studies showing that hydrogen really does appear to have promise for cancer, as a cancer therapy, right? But my point with this is a meta-analysis is like the highest tier of evidence for primary literature, but that's
Right.
still steps below when it comes to like doctoral procedures, like in the handbook, the guidelines, like the textbook, right? And
Right.
what that means is it's going to take years and years and years before we can overturn the old school of thought, right? And
Mm-hmm.
because it's so conservative. The benefit of that is that when it finally does, it means like, hey, this has really been demonstrated to work,
Yeah.
right? The problem is it
Yeah.
takes years to do that. And unfortunately, some of these things are changed not by one scientific paper at a time, but by one funeral at a time.
You're
We have to
right.
sometimes you have the older people who are hedging up the way have to kind of die off, and then the new people come in and take their place and like, no, look, there's so much research here, this should be included,
Yeah.
right? So there's a lot of politics and this kind of stuff that happens. And so I agree, when it comes to these types of therapies, people should be working in conjunction with their health physician, and they can do things as an adjunct treatment or an adjuvant therapy or something along these lines, but not doing the hydrogen monotherapy, so only hydrogen instead of
Right.
another type of. It should be done in conjunction for sure.
Yeah. And that's what we've seen our success with. And I mean, I don't know how many testimonials and stories I can share on here, but I mean, let's just say we have video testimonials and written testimonials and a really nice, beautiful fan base of Axiom H2 being able to introduce some of these things to these people. So we've gotten really good feedback from stage 4 dementia. And I know there was a paper that came out of China showing 3 months of inhalation of hydrogen was reversing dementia. And in our personal stories, we have a video testimonial. In 5 days, stage 4 dementia the woman was non-reactive, non-responsive to the entire environment. Then 5 days, they're like, we guess it's the hydrogen. Nothing else changed. She's been breathing this hydrogen. She's literally looking around, touching the dog. Where are we going? Why are we going? Like back there with it within 5 days. And so
Yep.
can we say 100% sure it's a hydrogen? No. Are there a million factors? Yes. But there's some new studies coming out of China already showing hydrogen for dementia. And
Yeah.
we've seen it personally.
Well, absolutely. The fact is when it comes to saying it's the hydrogen, there are two things to think about. One, maybe it is hydrogen for certain select individuals
Yes.
who have a certain phenotype, a certain receptor, a certain microbiome, a certain something. And so for this individual, it works. But if you were to do
Right.
it for 100 people, does that mean that 95 of them are going to work? Because that's what you set your p-value is, right?
Yeah.
It's 0.05 for statistics. And so all these things you have to kind of weed out to figure out at what point can you finally make a general statement, a general recommendation, right?
Yes.
But the study, there are a lot of studies coming out of China and from Japan. I think I could be wrong with the study you're talking about, but I think it might have been out of Japan, where they used MRI and they looked at it was a case study basically, and it could be a different one, but this one is one that brings to my mind right now because
Right.
like reversing, they were able to look mechanistically at the brain itself because they were able to use MRI to look at the integrity of the neuronal bundle, and they could and you can literally track from when they're using the inhalation of hydrogen gas to when they're not, and you can see the integrity of the neuronal bundle start to change based upon the inhalation of hydrogen gas, and they were using another method as well, but they would go back and forth with the medication, and what the thing that was consistent was the hydrogen gas, but not the medication. So it was very clear in this really cleverly designed type of a study that hydrogen gas, at least for this patient, really seemed to be making these tremendous effects, right?
Yeah, it's like it's hard to make any of these claims, but it's exciting to be a part of the mission and to see it, and it's been a rewarding mission. And I mean, there's a comment there about autoimmune disease. We have a woman by the name of Paige. She sent us a lot of testimonials. She was battling autoimmune disease and specifically lupus, and she had phenomenal results. Now, that was in conjunction with a healthy lifestyle and diet, but she never could get to the point of the lupus being in remission before she started hydrogen. So, and it's just exciting. You know, it's like, is
Yeah. And I think that's why we need to get more
yeah,
research. It's always more and more research, right? But to really understand that part, because like with the autoimmune system, there's a lot of things that are going on with the inflammatory response and the way that hydrogen works. Hydrogen actually has an immunomodulatory effect, and so for a lot
mhm,
of people, yeah, they might find that hydrogen can really benefit them. But there's that also raises potential contraindications of people who maybe are going to have negative side effects of hydrogen. Well, they're anecdotally those types of things are reported, but when you look at the clinical research, typically the amount of adverse effects in the hydrogen group is the same as the amount of adverse effects that is occurring in the placebo group, right? And
right.
so that doesn't necessarily mean that hydrogen, for some people who are super sensitive, just don't have anything, but it does mean if it is happening, it seems to be happening in a very select group of people with some strange specific condition. But then it raises the question, should these people also avoid eating their fruits and vegetables because they're going to make hydrogen gas from the bacteria, right? And it raises a
Right.
whole
Yeah.
questions. But I think we want to just be sensitive to the fact that we still have a lot more clinical research to do. And so if you're going to try it and you are somebody who has lots of sensitivities, that you would do it in conjunction with like a health physician so you can kind of watch your body and see how you're reacting to kind of better understand what the best frequency or dose or protocol would be for you.
Yeah, because there is not one shoe fits all. I love the high safety profile. So we recommend to the clinics and the doctors, put them on, have them breathe, take conscious breaths, and but monitor how they feel. There's people breathe 30 minutes. I didn't notice one thing. There's people that were lives were changed in 15 minutes of breathing. It's you don't ever know, and it could be things like their bacteria health is off and they don't have the hydrogenase enzyme. So they've been not making any hydrogen from antibiotics. And all of a sudden, hydrogen hits their body and their system's like, whoa, energy, what is this? And other people, they might have been making proper hydrogen in their gut health with a fiber-rich diet. And so they're not have that big wow effect in a 30-minute session. And it because it plays on so many different roles and different things in the body, it acts intelligently in each person's body. It's going to do something different for me than it does to you, than it does to so and so. And what I've seen, it gives the body with more energy to do what it's been trying to do,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so,
And I think that's an important understanding when it comes to molecular hydrogen itself. Is first off, it's a humble molecule. It's a simple, sweet, beautiful humble molecule. It's not a powerful drug. So it's a lot of people probably won't notice something tremendous from it.
right,
And we as far as to say in general, the healthier you are, the less you may notice the effects, because the further from homeostasis you are, then the more that hydrogen should have an effect. And like for me, I don't generally notice the effects of hydrogen unless I'm really far from homeostasis. Like if I'm put exercising really hard. I don't know if you saw like my video that I
yeah,
posted or my story, you know. Yeah, so so I do these sometimes intense type exercises, and when I'm really pushing myself, then I tend to notice more of like improved performance, recovery, or something, or maybe healing, or maybe it's just placebo. But again, the further I'm pushing myself from away from homeostasis, then the higher the probability that hydrogen could maybe have its effect and have its benefits.
right. And that's exactly, I'm the same way. I discovered this, 8, 9 years ago as a competitive athlete. I was a boxer and avid tennis player, free diver, scuba diver, you name it. And I first had actually was working with was actually ozone, ozone
Yeah.
therapy, and then hyperbaric oxygen, and then Oxy Hydrogen. And then after a short bout with Oxy Hydrogen, I'm like, There's nothing with oxygen. It's all with hydrogen. That's when I got on the pure hydrogen train, and I did notice it. I noticed in the water when I was drinking infused water for a while versus drinking regular water. I could tell I was drinking more water when it was infused with hydrogen than when it wasn't. It seemed that the water was heavier when it wasn't infused, and I couldn't drink as much throughout the day. But when I had my water infused, it seemed lighter, and I just noticed. I had a tin like this, and I could drink 2 or 3 of these a day when it was infused. But when it wasn't, I was getting really full off of like one, and this is like a liter and change.
Yeah.
So it was really interesting. Again, is it placebo? Is it actually making the water taste lighter because it's going into my cells and optimizing hydration? And that's some of the other things I wanted to talk about is like when we're talking about infusing water, my understanding is that the real magic is getting high saturation levels in the body, right? So basically infusing this and taking little sips throughout the day, that's not going to move the meter as far as the scientific research shows, right? But
Yeah.
to get the therapeutic effects, you need to drink what, like 1.5 liters in a sitting, which that's a lot of water. So help us explain that more about drinking the water.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's something that we need more research on because the fact is, you're right. If we the, sometimes things are based upon logic, but that's not always how things work because there's a lot more pieces of the puzzle that we're missing. But logically, I'll explain to you that yes, if you're going to sip on the water, then let's say that you just sip a little bit, and so you get like a 0.5 milligram of hydrogen that's in your water because you just take a really small volume, right? So yeah,
Right.
you're 1.6 milligram per liter, but you're only going to take a small amount of that water and you're going to sip on that. So you get less than 0.5 milligram. And now that 0.5 milligram has to be dissolved by all of your bodily fluids, right? So if you're a 70, kilogram individual, then that's like 70 liters of water, well, it's usually about like 70%, water or so. So you're 40 liters of water. So 0.5 milligram divided by 40 liters. And again, it's not quite this way because of the distribution and pharmacokinetics of hydrogen. We talk about this in our course, but as you do this math, you start to see that, wait a second, that means that the concentration of hydrogen is never going to reach at the cellular level high enough to exert those therapeutic effects, right?
Right.
You've got to get a high hydrogen. And how do you do that? There's only 2 ways, right? You either A, take a super high concentration of hydrogen, right? So that you can drink a small volume, or you drink a higher volume of water. Now, the problem with, because we can say, oh yeah, but you're still going to drink, the 1.5 or 2 liters throughout, say, an 18-hour period, right? But remember, hydrogen gas does not build up in the body; it doesn't stay stored in
No.
the. So it's after you drink it, it's completely gone out of the body within 30 to 60 minutes. That's it. And so if you are sipping it every 30 to 60 minutes, then by the time the hydrogen gas leaves, you're drinking again. You're never getting that high concentration, right? So you almost need to like down the water faster in order to get this higher dose. Now that makes sense logically, and it's something that I would recommend that is probably more effective to when you're going to take your hydrogen water. Probably you'd want to take a higher volume, like 500 milliliters or so at a time. Drink all that once, and you do that, 2, maybe 3 times a day, at least once a day, and that would be your dose of hydrogen. And then throughout the rest of the day, yeah, if you want to just sip on it, because for hydration purposes, it's probably healthier for your kidneys and for other reasons, where you're not downing 500 or to 1,000 milliliters of water all the time like that, because that is a level of stress and
Right.
electrolytes and all this. So it could be better to kind of sip on it like that. But when we look at like the animal studies and things, well, they're not necessarily downing a whole bunch of water at once, but they're sipping kind of throughout the day. But they're also drinking, and when they do take a sip of water, it's not really a sip. They're like taking like a liter of water every time they take a drink,
Yeah.
because the relative amounts is a lot. So typically in the animal studies, they're getting about 10 times as much hydrogen as we are, just because the volume of water relative to their body mass is a lot higher, right?
Yeah.
So there's that part that we have to consider about it as well. And then finally, it is interesting. with the this is kind of anecdotal, but there's a lot of information out there with the alkaline ionized water community, because the concentration of hydrogen water in the alkaline ionized water is often not very high. It's often between zero point 0.1 to zero point 0.8 milligram per liter or so, and yet there's people who have received tremendous benefits from drinking that water. But typically, this is just something I find so fascinating, is that a lot of these people who've been in the business for a long time, they have found over and over again independently that people don't really start getting the benefits of the water until they're drinking a few liters of the water a day. Well, maybe that's because the concentration is quite low, and in
Yeah.
order to get a high therapeutic dose of hydrogen, they need to drink several liters of the water, right? But then in this case, they're kind of sipping it through the day instead of getting a high blast of dose of the hydrogen all at once, right? So
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. It's probably still effective to be sipping the water a little bit, but it's probably not as effective as getting a higher dose all at once. And so I would say, hey, again, in the morning, you get your high dose of hydrogen, and then when you're going to drink hydrogen water throughout the day, or drink water throughout the day, you can have it be hydrogen water. You take your 100 milliliters at a time, or
Yeah.
your whatever, and then but you try to aim for at least one, maybe even two or three, good doses of getting that high volume of hydrogen water into your body at once.
Yeah. And so that's my understanding, is that it's about the concentration levels in the body has to reach a certain amount for us to start getting those really good therapeutic beneficial effects, in what I like to call enough to move the meter. And 8 years ago, I had the little water bottles, and I was doing those, and those, I don't know, it was just, that was where I started financially. It ended up never being the thing that really moved the meter for me, but the research, I was getting really behind it. And I mean, I could charge that bottle, slam it down, refill it, wait another 3 minutes, charge it, try to slam it down. But then I got into, thank goodness for MHI, learning about pH of water. And
Oh
so
yeah.
what I found is that there's a lot of the companies that is getting hydrogen as a byproduct by electrically altering the pH. And from my understanding, drinking water, because the pH is very important to me, and that's what's not talked about amongst the market with hydrogen dissolved tablets in the water. Right. Sure, it's creating available hydrogen in the water, but I checked the pH was very low, around a 4.5 on the pH scale, which I thought that was pretty low to be drinking. And then I also found not every company, but few of the bottled waters I tested was almost at a 10 on the pH scale, which I wouldn't recommend people drinking a 10 on the pH for alkaline water either. And so, and I don't know in MHI if you guys have a recommended that this is the most ideal pH to be drinking, but my understanding it should be in your 6.5 to 7.5. And it's not really the pH that's going to change so much. It's the hydrogen, right? It was always the hydrogen.
Yeah. No,
What are your thoughts about that?
yeah, that's great. Okay, so I'll talk about this, and then we'll kind of wrap it up here.
Sure.
Because this is a very important conversation, and in fact, just to separate the confusion between pH and hydrogen, because pH, right, means potential.
Potential hydrogen. Yeah.
Automatically, well, the higher the pH, the more hydrogen, which it couldn't be further from the truth,
Right.
because with potential of hydrogen, this type of hydrogen is a hydrogen ion, the H plus ion, right? Not hydrogen gas, not what we're talking about, right?
Right.
Plus, that P has the potential or power. Well, it is, but it's an exponent. It's the inverse exponent, which is a logarithm. And so, actually, the higher the hydrogen ion concentration, the lower the pH. So it's the opposite in this. So again, yes, there's no connection between hydrogen gas, the therapeutic molecule we're talking about, and pH. So then to your point, well, a lot of products out there, they either change the pH and the byproduct is hydrogen, or they're focused on making hydrogen and the byproduct is a change in pH. Okay, so like the
Right.
alkaline water, well, their entire focus to change the pH of the water, because that was the assumption, that was the understanding at the time, that is the change of the pH of the water is the end goal. want. That's the parameter you measure. That's what you care about. Who cares about the hydrogen gas?
Yeah.
Because no one knew it at the time, and they were going to focus on that, right? And now we're looking at, oh wait, no, it's the hydrogen gas that matters, right? And so now they're trying to change the market a little bit, and which is important that they're starting to recognize that the hydrogen gas is the therapeutic agent in the alkaline ionized water, and actually the alkaline pH is more of the byproduct.
Right.
Okay, now the body, the body regulates pH very tightly, and when it comes to alkaline water, honestly, for the most part, it probably doesn't matter to drink alkaline water because itself is not a buffer. It can't really resist changes in pH. And so that's why you can take your alkaline water and just a drop or two of lemon juice and boom, it's acidic. Okay. And so,
right.
So for the most part, it's not going to matter. But there are some cases if the pH is really high, like a pH of around 10 or so, and you're going to be drinking quite a bit of that, because then you can actually neutralize the stomach acid, because in the mornings, for example, your stomach acid may only be a pH of around 5 or 6, and you may only have 50 to 100 milliliters of stomach acid in there, and that can be easily overcome by drinking high pH alkaline water, and that can have some problems. And we published an article on this, on the potential negative health effects of drinking high pH alkaline, and specifically alkaline ionized water, because there's issues potentially with the electrodes and things. So it's not to say that, oh, that's just bad for you, right?
Yeah.
There's benefits. You've seen documented benefits from there, but it is to say that these are the things that we should consider, okay? And then when it comes to acidic beverages, really, that's never really a problem for the most part, because our stomach acid is already acidic, right? Our stomach acid is pH 0 to a pH of 4 on average. Like I said, in the morning it could be a little higher than that, but typically you want to have an acidic, right? It's 0 to 3 or so, and that's hydrochloric acid. And
Right.
so you can drink, citric acid, or like orange juice, for example, citrusy fruits. All of these are acidic. So the tablets, in this case, the tablets were developed to make hydrogen gas, and the byproduct is the change in the pH. Now, the reason why this one happens is because when the metallic magnesium, so they get a very high form or purity of magnesium, and it reacts with the water. When you do that, you actually increase the pH. And as the pH increases, the reaction stops. It doesn't work anymore. And so in facilitate the reaction, the company then adds various organic acids like malic acid. That's what gives apple its tart flavor.
Okay.
So they add like malic, tartaric acid, and other things that you would find in your fruits, for example, or citric acid as another one. Sometimes they can add. So now you combine the metallic magnesium with these organic acids, and then when you add it to water, then as the magnesium reacts with the hydrogen ions and converts to hydrogen gas, there's still enough acid to keep the pH low, and then you can drink that, and it's going to be about the same pH as the stomach, and again, there's no problem. And so the tablets, actually, we've used the tablets in some of the clinical studies. I probably helped with 3 or 4 studies on, and there's probably like 15 clinical studies with using the tablets. The nice thing about, just going back to the concentration and dose, because you make a good point earlier about trying to get that threshold and moving the meter, is that the tablets, you can dissolve it in the water, and you can get a high dose of the hydrogen and get that into the body, right? And that's going to give you magnesium ions, which we know are good for you. But of course, there are drawbacks, and I want to talk about a little about the drawbacks of the tablets, just so we understand the full comparison of everything, right? The benefit, like I said, is we don't need to worry about the pH, because it's not an oxidant. It's not going to oxidize it. The acid and oxidants are totally separate chemistry, right? One's a redox chemistry, base chemistry. And our body can regulate the pH just fine. You get a high dose of hydrogen, and it's consistent, and you get the benefits of magnesium. But the way that this reaction happens is when it does react with the water, it goes very fast. It's a very vigorous reaction, which that's good on the one hand, because you're going to make a bunch of hydrogen gas, but that also means that a lot of the gas is not dissolving in the water, and so it's undissolved quasi-suspended gas. And so unless you drink that water within a few minutes, you're going to lose like 90% of the hydrogen gas. So like I have the tablets, and I'll use that sometimes, and I'll drop it in the water, and then as soon as that tablet raises to the top, I immediately I
Yeah.
immediately want to drink it all, or else I'm gonna like lose 90% of the hydrogen. It's not fully dissolved in the water. Like
Right.
like take your diffuser stone and you dissolve that in the water, right? Well, after it's fully dissolved, after I don't know 5-20 minutes or something like that, that concentration is going to stay at that 1.6 milligram per liter, for quite a while, right? But the
Oh,
tablet, you can measure a concentration initially with gas chromatography, super high, like 7 milligram per liter. But after 5 minutes, that concentration is down to like 2 milligram per liter, and then it goes lower and lower, right? So
right.
there's a drawback to that. You got to drink it fast, and then of course, the taste is acquired taste because again, you're adding the organic gas, and
Right.
so but that's a very important point that you brought up about, just the fact that it's not about the pH, it's all about hydrogen gas. And
Yeah.
some products, their focus is a change in the pH, and a byproduct it just so happens to be hydrogen gas. And then
Yeah.
other cases, you're trying to make the hydrogen gas, and the byproduct is the pH.
Right. Wow. Thank you for that explanation because this is stuff that, I study, we read tons of articles, we see lots of testimonials, and, there's studies showing every which way. So that was a great explanation. And, I've always understood hydrogen like a mechanic. Hydrogen's like a mechanic, works on a car, works on your car for an hour, and then he's out. And then your body runs better afterward, right? That's how hydrogen comes in, cleans
Yeah.
up some things, and then it goes.
Right.
And so, I really appreciate your time and explaining everything. Um, I know, a lot of things I just wanted to really understand, with breathing, I guess this could be the last question just to get you free from this is, do you think you're going to hit a higher saturation level in your blood for longer extended periods of time with breathing than you would have to drinking water? That was my understanding. That's why I tend to go more breathing. Like I got in 30 minutes with you.
Yeah.
Was I consciously breathing? No, I was talking. I wasn't taking deep breaths, and I know it doesn't have the same effect. But versus me trying to drink like a liter and a half of water in a short amount of time, do you think we hit those higher concentration levels in the body through like a breathing session while you're watching down laying a movie, for example?
It's a great question. There's a lot that goes into that we do cover in our level 2 courses.
Okay.
But briefly, the fact is when you okay, there's certain locations in the body, like the liver, for example,
It's a high.
um, little vein, where you're going to absorb the water. The concentration of hydrogen from drinking water will generally be orders of magnitude higher than you will ever get from inhalation. And and
Correct.
and and that's because when you inhale, what we talked about with the math, when you dilute everything down, you're only several percentage. However, the other organs of the body, like the brain and the muscles and where the arterial blood has to get into, then you can never get a higher concentration of hydrogen from drinking water because you're going to exhale most of that gas out. And so then inhalation becomes very important. Okay,
Mm,
so that why the two really can't necessarily be compared. They're almost like two totally separate, not just method administrations, but the effects are different because one is affecting different second messenger systems and doing different things that the other one is not. And so really they both should be used. And so
right.
which one is better? Oh, we don't know. And like I say, sometimes the hydrogen water will give a higher concentration for some certain organs and tissues, and other
Yeah.
times the inhalation.
Great. That's great explanation. And I do them both. I have a very good morning routine. It's make the hydrogen water first thing in the morning. And I have a steam sauna, a little at-home steam sauna, that was on sale for Black Friday.
Yeah.
And so I'm making the hydrogen water, putting it in the steam sauna, and adding, essential oils in there. And so, like, that is hydrogen-rich steam. And so it's right? And that's what's huge in the aesthetic industry in Asia, Korea, Japan is a hydrogen-rich baths. So I'm getting all this hydrogen steam. I drink the water. I try to do at least a session, maybe not every day, but I try to. And then I have tablets which are a bit different, but they're not designed to be dissolved in water. You take them whole and they break down in the stomach over, I guess it's about 10, 15 minutes. And we've had really powerful testimonials from the tablets alone, and that's kind of different. I know most of them are water dissolved, and I know there's not a whole lot of research with the orally dissolved ones. I saw some things about there being a potential to possibly overheat the cells if they break down too fast.
Yeah, if
But
you break down too fast, because you're kind of at this ratio, this algorithm, right? So maybe we can talk later,
sure,
about some of how this, but basically, if it is reacting with the stomach acid to produce hydrogen gas, then if it does fast, then yeah, it can create heat, and that could be potentially damaging. Because like the tablets, if you put a tablet in your mouth and just kind of suck on it, you can every once in a while feel like, oh, that's hot,
yeah,
and so a little bit careful with that, right? But then if you make it go really slow, well, then it's like you're sipping on the water. It's a little, you're just sipping on it, and you're not really getting that threshold, right? So
right.
there's just kind of an algorithm you have to figure out like what's going to be the best way.
Mhm.
So we talk about it more, and maybe do some more thinking on that.
Excellent. And so I mean, look, I've been waiting eight years for this call with you. So last thing. Is it under your understanding that breathing hydrogen would directly help with cleansing the lungs, cleansing the capillaries? Like we talked about, wherever hydrogen actually touches is a little bit more effective. And I know you're a super athlete. You're a very humble super athlete. But I know I've been watching, and the one-handed pull-up, you knock those out like nothing, and I need a little hop up, and I got it. But so I admire your athletic performance, and me being, an athlete in so many different things, I notice my cardio, my lungs are so much fresher when I breathe the hydrogen gas before I do like my sprints and things like that. And we work with top athletes. Yocasta ranked number one female boxer in the world. She loves our products and she loves the breathing, and she doesn't get fatigued when she trains after she does a breathing session.
Yeah.
So am I correct to assume that it is working on opening the capillaries, cleansing the lungs any?
Um, I mean, I don't know the best way to describe it. I mean, I don't necessarily like for cleansing. Just
Right,
what does that mechanistically mean, right? But we know that hydrogen has effects like with our immune system in general, right? With our white blood cells, how it affects to help. I guess you could say clean things out, because you're activating different cellular pathways, including like autophagy, for
right,
example. So you can help to get rid of some of these senescent cells and other problem cells. And then there is some data showing how hydrogen can improve like oxygen saturation. Hydrogen,
right.
not hydrogen
Yes,
alone, improving oxygen
yes,
saturation, because of its effects on the blood, and its effects on the hemoglobin, its effects like just being dissolved in the blood, its effects on nitric oxide and some signaling and vasodilation. So it is interesting that on the athletic side of things, that yeah, maybe inhaling hydrogen gas could be beneficial, and it's possible that some of the benefits are not directly linked to the physical chemical therapeutic effects of hydrogen, but rather due to the molecule itself. I guess in this case, the physical chemical properties of the hydrogen molecule, because we see like inhalation of helium gas has an effect to make it easier for the lungs, and they can open up and breathe easier. And that's not because helium has an antioxidant effects or anti-inflammatory effects. It's just the nature of the gas being so small and so light that it has these effects itself. And hydrogen gas is even smaller, or well, lighter than helium gas is. And so some of those effects we may also be experiencing, and one of the reasons why hydrogen can provide those benefits.
wow. Well, thank you so much, Tyler. I really appreciate your world of knowledge and experience, and just a very balanced, very fair, very science-based opinions and views on everything. And, keep doing what you're doing, spreading the world of this miracle molecule of molecular hydrogen therapy. And, where everyone's very excited for level 2. I get that a lot, so we're all waiting eagerly. For those of you guys watching, go over to molecularhydrogeninstitute.com. This is the founder, Tyler. Is it Dr. Tyler LeBaron yet?
Yeah. Now I finished. So years ago. So we did my PhD. Now I'm teaching at the university once in a while as an adjunct professor instructor. So yes, and we also updated our URL. We finally have the .org domain. So of course you can
Okay.
go to .com transitions, but like when I first got this in 2013, I just bought the .com. I didn't even think about it, and then some other major company like bought all the .orgs, and so I didn't have access to it. And so
Yeah.
finally we have access.
No.
And so yeah, please go check it out our website and make sure if you want to follow us on our social media platforms. Follow my what do you call it, my handle.
Instagram handle, right?
And for MHI is H2MHI, and we posting molecular hydrogen research and information. And so I invite everyone to join the community. We're going to grow the awareness. So, and I just want to say thank you so much, everybody, for all of your support, for your comments, and for your interaction, and for doing this together. And thank you.
Yeah, it was an honor, a pleasure. I look forward to staying in touch with you. We're doing a lot of exciting clinical trials and research, and we got a whole team of doctors. So I definitely want to plug you into my team and see how we can pick your brain and how you could help kind of maybe orchestrate and be involved in some of our research that we're doing, because you are the go-to guy for validation on what's right and wrong in this field, because it's an unregulated market. So we need the education. That's what you're providing. And guys, follow him on Tyler. What's your handle for everyone one more
Yeah,
time?
Tyler W. LeBaron for Instagram, or just Tyler LeBaron. Yep.
And then the H2, the MHI one is what?
Yeah, H2MHI from Molecular Hydrogen Institute. We just started this, our social media for that. So please get support.
Yeah.
Share our. You guys are all welcome to share our posts. Because they're non-denominational. I mean, it's all about education. So go
Yeah.
to HI, share the post, spread the good word, and you'll be happy and blessed.
Okay. Awesome, guys. Thank you, everyone, for joining. We'll follow up on. I know there's a lot of juicy questions in here. Maybe we can get to those on the next one. So thank you again, Tyler. It was truly an honor and a privilege.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Mateo. All right. We'll see you.
Okay. Take care. Bye. Okay, guys, there we have it. That was an amazing, amazing, amazing talk with the famous Dr. Tyler LeBaron. He's the leading research expert, at least in North America. I know there's some big hotshots in Japan and Korea and China as well. But as far as North America goes, Tyler LeBaron is the go-to guy. He's so humble. You would never know his knowledge and his athletic performance, because he doesn't brag about it. But he is a very, very special person. I've definitely admired him for many years. I don't look up to so many people, and he's one of the ones. So please follow his new channel. Go to molecularhydrogeninstitute.com. Anyone in any business involved with hydrogen therapy, you guys need to be on that level. Get certified, get education. Knowledge is power. The more knowledge we have, the more better we can be clear about the benefits, what it is, what it isn't. And I look forward to seeing everyone on the next one. Take care. Okay. Let's see how I close this down.